Bastila Shan is one of the most iconic characters of the Old Republic era, and more specifically the Knights of the Old Republic games. She is one of our main protagonists, and she's also the main love interest for the official canonical version of Revan. However, Bastila wasn't always supposed to be the Bastila we know and love. Now, if you've gone down the rabbit hole of KOTOR information and development decisions, then you probably already know this. However, I guarantee that a lot of you probably don't. The original intent for Bastila Shan was to never actually have a human female character called Bastila Shan that would go on to be one of the main protagonists of the story. As a matter of fact, Bastila Shan was actually the name given to a KOTOR female, and the role Bastila plays in the story was actually intended to be someone entirely different, but very iconic. Now, before I tell you who that character was supposed to be, in terms of who Bastila was originally supposed to be, I bet a few of you have already made that deduction. Well, the character of Bastila Shan was actually meant to be none other than Juhani. In the original artwork for the game, Juhani is known as Bastila Shan. She wore the same outfit as Bastila, and she had the same kind of colour scheme, and the character that we know as Juhani was created as a result of the fact that they needed a new character to replace the original character who would become Bastila Shan. It's a little bit confusing, I know. Now, if any of you have read the Tales of the Jedi comic books, there's a really interesting character in those comics known as Nomi. This character was known as Nomi de Boda, and she ended up marrying a guy called Andor Sunrider when she was about 20 years old. Andor himself was a very powerful Jedi who went against the Jedi ways by falling in love with Nomi, and the two of them had a child known as Vima. Sadly though, Andor died when they were attacked by a group of thugs, and his Force Ghost reached out to Nomi as they were going to be killed, and he helped her connect to the Force, pick up his lightsaber and fight back and kill the thugs. Now, Nomi had never really felt this before. She was always in awe of her husband's connection to the Force and things that he could do, and she never believed that she had that capability in herself, and felt ridiculously guilty for killing these guys despite the fact that they had just killed her husband. But she was devastated. She had just lost the man she loved, she was a widow, and she was a single mother, but the Force Ghost of Andor told her that she can't languish in these terrible emotions and feelings, and to keep hold of that connection to the Force and continue their journey to a planet known as Ambria. She then does this, and she goes through a whole journey of self-reflection and grief and stuff like that, but she eventually meets a Jedi Master known as Thon, and she is trained to become a Jedi Knight whilst looking after her daughter. She then became a vital figure during the Exile Kun War, and she was presumably about during the Mandalorian Wars too, and she was regarded as one of the most powerful Jedi to ever have existed at that point. So much so that she became the Jedi Grand Master. The youngest in Star Wars history, by the way, despite the fact that they like to claim that Bastila Shan was, but it was actually Nomi. Now, one of Nomi's signature abilities that she had come to use during the Exile Kun War was actually none other than battle meditation, and she was well noted for being one of the most adept users of battle meditation in the entire galaxy, and she was vital to so many of the conflicts that played out in that period of time for her application of battle meditation and helping swing the tide in the Jedi's favour. Nomi was one of the first ever known true practitioners of battle meditation to this extent, alongside Archegeth, and it was going to be something that was familial and passed down through generations. But keep that in mind, because Nomi isn't the character that we're here to talk about. I just wanted to establish the surroundings of the Sunrider family. Instead, more importantly, the character that I want to bring to your attention is actually Vima, her daughter. So I literally just spoke about battle meditation being something that was supposed to be passed down through generations in the Sunrider family, so are you starting to make a deduction? The character of Bastila Shan that we know in Knights of the Old Republic was actually supposed to be Vima Sunrider. The Sunrider family was supposed to be at the core of the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic stories. Similar to how the Skywalkers are for the movies, the Sunriders were kind of meant to parallel that. The central idea of battle meditation being a natural affinity for the Sunrider family was supposed to pass down to Vima in Knights of the Old Republic 1, and Vima was supposed to carry the responsibility that Bastila Shan carried in the original game. But now, the question is, why would they change this? They had already established the Sunrider legacy and family, the battle meditation links, and truthfully it was the perfect continuation from the Tales of the Jedi comics that Knights of the Old Republic was inspired by. And the reality was, it was just a copyright problem. At some point after the comic's release, a number of legal issues arose over the usage of the name Sunrider. Now, it isn't actually truly known where these legal issues stem from. There's been a number of theories here and there that state that it was actually something to do with a car part from Jeep known as the Sunrider, and there's also some credibility to the idea that it was actually due to the fact that the writer of the comic books, Tom Veitch, had used Sunrider in a separate story and therefore there was some legal complications. But regardless, the usage of the name Sunrider became a real serious issue, and for certain things beyond the comic books, they actually renamed Nomi to use her maiden name, Deboda, to get away from these legal problems. And you'll notice in Knights of the Old Republic 1 and Knights of the Old Republic 2, they will only ever use their first names to reference the characters from the Sunrider family because Sunrider became forbidden. For example, Vima Sunrider is actually one of the masters of the Jedi Exile, and she's mentioned in KOTOR 2, and you can also find Nomi's robes, and Nomi was also mentioned quite a few times in Knights of the Old Republic 1 too. However, there was one specific moment in KOTOR 1 that some of you might remember, where Jolee does actually mention Nomi Sunrider by her full name, and this was not supposed to be there legally, but they just missed it when writing the game and they forgot to take it out and they just left it there. But with that said, they didn't want any new legal battles or legal issues over a name, so the character that was originally supposed to be the daughter of Nomi, Vima, was completely scrapped and changed to be a brand new character known as Sareth Dawn. Now, the name Sareth Dawn didn't quite have that ring to it, and so they actually decided, you know what, we've got a good character called Bastila Shan, so why don't we rename her and take the name Bastila Shan that we had from very early on in development and give that character the name of Juhani instead. And voila! That is how the character of Bastila Shan that we know and love today was created. And the thing is, Vima Sunrider wasn't just renamed and reskinned to be Bastila Shan. Bastila was a completely new character. Everything revolving around Bastila was made from scratch, and there's no real tie to the original Vima idea or the Sunrider family aside from the battle meditation. What I find most interesting here, though, is how they would have made this work, because Vima, by the time of Knights of the Old Republic 1, would have been about 40 years old, maybe even her mid-40s, and not the young Jedi Padawan that Bastila Shan ended up becoming. And so it's interesting to wonder how different the story would have been, because Vima at this point would have been an established Jedi, maybe even a master. Her battle meditation would have been something that was relied upon for a while, even during the Mandalorian Wars, alongside her mother, and she would have been highly respected. Whereas Bastila Shan is kind of the opposite. She's an absurdly powerful kid that the Jedi essentially use to their own ends, without actually considering her as the person. But with that said, I'm not sad about it. As much as I love Tales of the Jedi and the comics and the Sunrider family itself, I ended up loving Bastila Shan, the character that we did get, but I just find it interesting and wonder what things could have been like instead. But that is pretty much it. In case you guys were interested and want to know more about Nomi and Vima, you can go and read the Tales of the Jedi comics, not that absolutely heinous show that Disney are making that's coming out later this year. And while all of the Tales of the Jedi comics do have some connection to Vima and Nomi, the main one that you want to check out is actually the saga of Nomi Sunrider. And I actually recommend to read all of them if you haven't, because it's a great comic book, and it essentially sets up the entirety of Knights of the Old Republic. And of course, my question for you guys today is, are you happy with Bastila Shan, or does a part of you wish that Bastila was actually Vima Sunrider and they continued that storyline from the comic books? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button because it tells YouTube that you had a fantastic time, and if you haven't, perhaps consider subscribing to join the biggest growing Knights of the Old Republic community on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. always.